is First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast, the official podcast of WFAT, the World Federation of Athletic Training and Therapy. Organic dialogue, passionate pros, bringing you all the things from the sports performance and human performance spaces, growing understanding, growing community, growing a profession. Athletic training and athletic therapy travels, knows no borders. It's First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast. Thank you for being here. All right, we're back. Long awaited. Glen Bergeron is here with us. He's out in Winnipeg here in Canada. Renowned, respected, been at it a long time in the athletic therapy profession, an educator, a mentor, a colleague, and now sort of, a friend and somebody I can rely on for high quality information as to what this profession is. Glen, welcome aboard. Appreciate you taking some time this morning. It's session 183 here on Let's Chat, the official podcast of WFAT.
Thanks very much for having me.
Yeah, always a pleasure. I went back, I listened to our previous session, which I think was session 27, always great for stories. And I think those are really impactful in terms of, how you see the profession, how we grow within the profession. Last time I saw you in person was over in Dublin for WFAT here, just wrapping up the last World Congress. So great to see you again. Great to see you over there. What are you up to these days for our audience? Where has your professional endeavors taken you to this point? And just reintroduce yourself to our audience to start, and we'll dive in from there.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm currently on a sabbatical from the University of Winnipeg. I'm the professor at the University of Winnipeg. I'm also the program director for the athletic therapy program at the university. So I do, and I teach in the program. Currently, I teach an applied anatomy course and a drugs and sport course and a rehab course. So those are my three academic responsibilities. I also, dear to my heart, that I'm in the clinic 2 days a week as well. So that's a great thing. Currently, I'm not in the clinic on a regular basis. I'm not regularly scheduled, but as it happens, I go in usually on Thursdays, and I see patients on Thursdays, mostly because some of the patients that I had a few ACL injuries that the rehab wasn't complete yet. And then I just felt like I want to stick around and take them right through the whole program. And because you do that, then you end up saying, well, I'm going to be there anyways. I'll see this person, I'll see that person. And so the clinic just kind of expands. It's not something I should be doing, but it is true to my heart. So and it keeps me in the clinic and keeps me in contact, which is good.
Yeah, and
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that's part of it for our audience too, is like remaining active in it in all of these areas while you're doing research. It's hard as a practitioner who's working in hands-on scenarios to step away from that and then just go the research route, I'm sure.
Yeah, so it gives me a little bit of freedom, a little bit of flex time to be able to pick up on some of the other projects that you say, I wish I had time to do this. So I think just recently I put out, I haven't published it yet, but we put it out for the Sport Medicine Science Council Manitoba. We're looking for some areas that were of interest, that in the sports community. And one particular one was just the whole use of ammonia salts. And I'm sure you're probably seeing that, and you're seeing it certainly at the professional level. And for some reason or other, the media tends to want to focus on that. So as soon as somebody swipes something underneath their nose, the camera's right on them. So we decided we would take that up as an issue, as an information issue. So I did a little review of lit of that and wrote up a paper, and it's been distributed throughout all of our sports. That was one of the first things that I've been doing, and it's also allowed me. I was asked by I'm on the program accreditation committee with the CATA, so we're doing an external review of one of our accredited or a review of one of our academic programs. Right. That comes up. Their time has come up for a full review, so it's giving me that opportunity to do that, and also the Canadian Council of Physical Education and Kinesiology Administrators, their acronym is CUPICA. And I was on that board for many on that committee for many years as when I was the chair and the associate dean of the faculty here at the university. And I still currently now sit on their academic review committee. And so I've been asked as well to do a review of their academic program too for their accreditation. So I'll be doing that as well. So that gives me some time to delve in, look into their programs, travel over there. We do the site visits and things like that. So it's a good opportunity to be able to do that while I'm off. And I'm doing some research, proposing some research. I really want to go back and look at. We haven't done an occupational survey of athletic therapy for quite some time, and with the CATA. So we collaborating with Siobhan O'Connor from Ireland and Eva Frank from the US and Oli Colburn from the UK, and we're going to put together a survey and just do an international comparison and see how we're doing in terms of job markets, salaries, challenges, et cetera, that might come out of it. So I'm hoping to be able to do that as well.
And true to
So
the
we're working diligently on it.
Yeah, and true to the former, true to the profession is multiple hats, obviously. Lots of different places doing lots of different things. In your take on this, it's like you've been at this a while, and are those interests that came sort of later in the profession, or did you identify this early on in the profession in terms of, I don't know, I guess level of importance or meaningfulness of those numbers, the salaries, these types of things? I think like for our younger listeners, it's coming right out. It's like the big shiny logo or the big arena with lots of people in it. Like that's the target, or that might be the goal for a certain percentage of students in the athletic training, athletic therapy profession. But they may not know the ins and outs of salary and all of these types of things. And then you talk about accreditation and the meaningfulness of the education side of things. So two obviously critically important pieces that I don't think we think about when we're going through them or we're early on in our career. When did that become of sort of significance and interest for you?
I think pretty early on in terms of it's actually interesting. I didn't mention this, but the the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame. I was actually very honored to have been inducted to the Sports Hall of Fame this year in the builder category. But the extension of that was have some opportunity to talk to the people involved in the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame, and so they are now doing going to develop a display on the evolution of athletic therapy and tie it to the evolution of sport. So it's going to be going to look at where athletic therapy has come from in terms of how it evolved and initially into the whole sports environment, but also how sport has changed, and particularly things like different equipment, the equipment changes kind of, and how that's impacted on injury and things, and then how the evolution of the profession of athletic therapy has changed from the person who was putting on the band-aids and had the towel around their head and gave them water balls to the fact that now this is a bona fide and validated profession that it has, that we've grown through this whole era. So they're working on that right now, and so as part of that. I was just going running through some old files, and I was the president of the Canadian Athletic Therapy Association in 1980, and it boggles my mind when I think that, because I had only certified in 1975. So 5 years after being certified, I was now the president of the association, and I was only 28 years old. But I looked at the annual report that I put out that year, and it amazes me how some of the issues are still the same. And that's like 46 years later, we're still having some of these issues. But it also showed me like where we started and where we've come from. And in those days, we were at that time when I took on the presidency of the CATA, Sport Canada had taken away all of our funding. We didn't have any funding, and in fact, I have some letters from the treasurer saying that we pretty much have to shut down. We have $3,000 in our bank account, and they said you have to stop spending. We haven't got anything, and so from a financial point of view, we had a crisis. We also had a crisis because we were still fighting for our identity vis-a-vis physiotherapy, and that was a big issue in those times. And so I was fortunate enough to meet with a fellow by the name of Pat Reed, who was with the Sport Medicine Council. He was the sport consultant that was initially with us. So I ended up going and having a meeting with him and some senior administrators in sport and sport, the Ministry of Sport. Here's this 28-year-old kid coming in, and I was fortunate enough to make a case that they reinstated a whole bunch of our funding, and they gave us more funding actually than we wanted for special projects and things. So I have all that stuff down on paper, in my archives and stuff. And it was kind of interesting to see like where we were and where we are now, and so you take a certain amount of pride in having been able to accomplish that. And it's not me. I mean, the people who are on my board were all of the same vintage. There was like John Perry was the president who I took over from, and then Dexter Nelson was with me, and Carol Keys and Dale Butterwick and Brian Gastaldi. There are a whole bunch of people, that Joe Piccinini was involved, and so I'm naming names. I'm going to forget some of them, which is kind of unfortunate, but there were so many people that we had some great young people with huge passions, and and we all really worked together to just put this thing together and really formalize it. Our mentors were guys who just they saw a need, and they saw this need for them to get together and to network, and that was the principal portion of it, and it was a very valuable part of it of them. If you ever get a chance, I've got a copy of the very first CATA conference. Was held in sorry, in 1967 actually, at this Maple Leaf Gardens. And there's no sound to it, but you watch these guys. They're all in shirts and ties, the whole bunch of them, and they're all watching somebody else taping, and they're talking about how this taping technique versus that taping technique, and it just showed the whole point of them was to kind of get together. And it's unfortunate there's no signs and there isn't a lot of record. But one of the things that every so often they were wearing this name tag, and it was actually the name tag that they had was the entrance, the VIP entrance to the All-Star game. And so it was kind of cool, but they had their name on it. So every so often, whoever was videotaping would videotape onto their name tag. So I'm busily writing names down to who's there, Mert Profit and Chuck Badcock and some of these other people were all there. So it's fascinating to watch and to see what they're doing. But to see, like that was our roots. That's where we first began. And but they were more, I think, more introspectively thinking for a while, because they were just saying, let's get ourselves together. How can we help each other? And it took a while, I think, before we started thinking, okay, this is a bigger thing. This is actually going to become more of a formalized thing. So we need to put some rules and regulations together and quality control, if you like. And so that's where we sort of came in. And prior, prior to us, one of the things they did do which was amazing, I think, was to recognize the name change of athletic therapist versus athletic trainer. Mm-hmm. And I know I talk to Americans all the time, and they tell me all the time how that was a great thing that you guys did, because it's something that they really struggle with in the US right now. They see that challenge that name poses, but they also see the tradition and the inroads that they've made in branding it. So it's difficult for them. But we made that change a long time ago, and I'm very grateful for our past leaders for having seen that. But some of the things we looked at in my time, I brought in the whole notion of regional chapters, and my vision was that it was going to be a regional chapter-based kind of national organization with that kind of representation. It's unfortunate, I think, anyways, that it's gone the other way, where we've actually kind of separated from from the regional chapters in some ways, and in some ways now maybe trying to reconnect with some of our groups, but we still have a real, I think, an issue there that which is really unfortunate that's happened. But even in 1980, in my president's report, one of the highlights there was legislation. We need to do legislation. So we identified that a long time ago. It's been a long, long road to get that, and I think my understanding is Quebec is very, very close to finalizing their legislation, and in Manitoba we have our application in, and we're just waiting for the bureaucracy to take its course. But we're hoping that's going to happen sooner than later.
Yep.
But I think it's something that probably needs to happen across the country to provide some long-term sustainability to the profession.
Yeah, absolutely. And the history of it and where it came from, and sort of seeing, history will kind of always repeat itself, I think, not only in this profession, but in humanity in general, as we can see sort of, geopolitically or whatever we're going to look right now, is a lot of the same problems kind of repopulate if they don't end up getting a resolve, or the resolve isn't what everybody wants. I think I just want to shift gears in terms of like the application of the profession itself and where you see it and how you see it. Again, like we had overlap in Dublin, and from you being at sort of like the founding principles of athletic therapy in Canada, do you have a feel for how athletic therapy is viewed from other countries that are either new to the profession or do it a little bit differently, or a feel for that? Or maybe the aside to that is like the unification of what this profession is, like going internationally and seeing how many people are doing amazing things in like a lot of different spaces and a lot of different ways, and the topics and the things that athletic trainers and athletic therapists are now involved in, certainly different than it was back when the profession first started.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hey, it's James Gardner here, host of Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast, the official podcast of the World Federation of Athletic Training and Therapy. We are excited to announce the next International Athletic Training and Therapy Day on February 12th, 2026. IATTD 26. This year's theme is Elevating Health Worldwide. We're calling on all athletic trainers, athletic therapists, and sport rehabilitators across the world to join us in celebrating our shared profession on a global scale. During IATTD 26, we'd love to hear from individuals, organizations, associations, societies, academic programs, and more about the impact of our colleagues in elevating health for their patients, clients, and communities. There are a number of ways you can participate via social media and in your communities. Share stories. Tell us a bit about a day in your life as an athletic therapist, athletic trainer, or sport rehabilitator. Give a shout out to an athletic trainer, athletic therapist, or sport rehabilitator who's positively impacted you as a professional or you as an athlete. Ask athletes and patients to share their thoughts on the value of ATs and sport rehabilitators in their lives. Create a fun video to highlight you in your setting or community. When you post to social media, be sure to use the hashtag IATTD26 and tag us.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, the thing that I see internationally, we have a lot of work to do internationally, and it's just a tough nut to crack, right? Because we have a few groups right now internationally working. And I think since I became was with the World Federation, we have Jordan. We've done some work with Jordan. We've done work with Israel. Those are the two biggest ones right now that have really evolved. But they all have struggles. I mean, they struggle just the same thing as we did. And one of the things that we tell them is it's going to be a struggle. The good thing is that you have other people to look to advice. Like initially in the 1950s, the NATA was formed, and we were actually, some of our members were actually Canada was actually a part of the NATA. It had its own division.
Yeah.
And then our forebearers, Chuck Babcock and those people, those ones often said, no, we're going to create our own organization. So so they created the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association. But NATA struggled, and we have always looked to see we're always sort of a little bit behind the NATA, and we're trying to address the same issues. So we always went back, well, what did the NATA do, and learn from their mistakes, or we'll learn from their wins, and try and apply that. So that was a bonus for us to
Right.
some degree, but it's still been a struggle. It's been a huge struggle for the CATA over the years. Um, and so now in Jordan and in Israel, when they're looking at, well, they've got you got the NATA, they got the CATA, they got the UK, and they've got RD, and they've got Japan, and we've got Korea, Taiwan, all of these groups that if the people want to get information, there's information there, and they're also willing to share that information. So I think that I know that Israel has done things by leaps and bounds in terms of they've only been trying to do this probably for 5 or 6 years, and they're already at the point where they have their national exam is they're working on developing well, they've given a national exam already. Like in 5 years to have that is just incredible, because for you look at the CAT, it took us like decades to do that.
Right.
And so, but a lot of that was built on the fact that there are a lot of things that have been barriers that have been broken down. And one of the things that I think that's really has been very, very valuable has been the World Federation. These associations go back and say, we're not just like a startup group or a pop-up group in this particular country trying to make inroads. We're part of an international group. This is not new stuff. This is, there's a profession out there, and we want to be there. And their governing bodies say, if you can show us that you've got the support of and the endorsement of an international organization, then that goes a long way to entrench your credibility. And so that's what they've done in Jordan, for example. They're managed through the Jordanian Olympic Committee, and in Israel, they have their own association that's formed, and they're tied to they have an academic program, and the Ono College. So those two, the Ono College and the Israeli Athletic Therapy Association, they work hand in hand to try and advance this. And in fact, they actually had to there was a challenge. They had to go to the Supreme Court. Their court system is very different from ours. They actually went to the Supreme Court to address a challenge about the viability and credibility of the profession of athletic therapy. And I go, to the Supreme Court? Yeah. And they won. So that's incredible to get that kind of support and recognition. So I think they've done amazing jobs, but a lot of it has been done because of the work that's been done by other organizations around the world.
Yep.
So we're very pleased with that. But at the same time, we look and say there's a lot of areas that we need to make further inroads and to introduce who we are. So we're in Asia, we're in Singapore. I think we've made presentations in Armenia. It's amazing where we're at in terms of talking to people. So that's been a fun thing.
Yeah, and I mean the fun part of it, and I think full circle, going back to the meetings early for you in the CATA as the president at 28 years old, and getting together and everybody in suits and ties and taping and watching each other and talking about the profession and doing those things. Like there's a big piece of that to the in-person component of being a part of something and seeing everybody, as many people as possible that can get together. Takeaways from you in terms of anything sort of you didn't expect or something you walked away even more proud of as an athletic therapist from Canada, from the World Congress. I mean, for us, I know you saw old friends. I know you met new people. I know you're a part of all of these committees and virtually everybody who walks in the room. And so that's always a positive when there's in-person interaction and the social component. But anything specific from you from World Congress?
Well, actually, that's the point, is that I don't know everybody who walks in the room there now, because there are so many people involved now, and there are so many young people that there's an energy that's being built, and that's exciting, and the fact that that there are more and more people now willing to take up the torch, if you will, to say let's move this thing along, and so that's been a great just to sort of sit back. I think sit back and you say, this is the fruit of a lot of work of a lot of dedicated people, and to see that the outcome of it, and to see that there's a promise going forward is quite exciting when you think about it internationally. But as I said, they all have their challenges. They're all sitting there and they're all making those small inroads. And it would be nice if we could just break all those barriers in very short. But it's the name of the game is relationships, and the name of the game is proving your worth and your entity and your validity, and getting into new markets. I think that's one of the things I think I've come to recognize as well, is that we had in mind working with people and providing the skill set for people to work in a specific area. Mm-hmm. And that was in sport and team sport. That was but it has since broken out, right? So I always say that, the recreation tennis player who sprained their ankle are now watching, the pro tennis league, and they're watching somebody with a sprained ankle, and they came back in 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm waiting for like 2 and 3 and 4 months. Why is this happening? Why can't I have this? Because my recreational tennis is just important to me as the tennis is to that profession. It's just important. It's on a different scale, but it's just as important. Right. So I want to get back just as much as that person. Why can't I have the same services? Why can't I get that same? And so that led them to say, who's doing that for those athletes? And they sought them out. And then our therapist, I can speak from my experience when I was at the University of Winnipeg, and in 1977 when I started at the University of Winnipeg, that's what it was. My job was just to work with our teams, and then all of a sudden, a professor would come in and say, I sprained my ankle, I did this, would you look at me? Okay, I look at it. And then somebody else, and an athlete would bring their parent in, or, all of a sudden we started bringing all these non-athlete people in my clinic. I'm going, and it was actually kind of fun, because I'd see all these new people. I'd see them, our team's out there practicing. My clinic is right off the court. So I go, okay, well, I've got some time while you're practicing, come in and look. And it almost became a second clinic. But we weren't charging because we didn't have any system for that, so we just did it. And the good thing out of that is, at Christmas time, I never had to buy a box of chocolates, and I never had to buy a bottle of rum, because at Christmas time they'd all come in and say thank you very much. And so then, but it got to the point where it was getting to be a lot of people, so I actually hired an assistant, and we were able to then start charging a little bit, minimum amount of money, to help pay for this person's salary. And we're charging a lot. But it provided me, and it was a refresher, because now I had another person working with me who speaks my language. So that was nice. I wasn't working by myself, and we were seeing more and more patients, and we just kind of created this clientele. The downside was I got no more chocolates. I didn't get any more rum because we were charging them. That's it. And then eventually it got to the point where we opened up a public clinic. So now, like, the clinic downstairs in our clinic at the university sees lots and lots of public people, and so that was an interesting kind of evolution of the profession. And then people started to recognize that our students have skill sets in a whole bunch of areas. They can talk to people that language, and so, like, we have students now who are working as case managers for insurance companies. We have three actually medical equipment, medical supply stores, that sell tape and braces and things like that. We have 3 of them in the city here. All 3 of them are hiring our graduates. Yep. And some of them, one of them actually has a clinic tied to theirs. So our students are doing sales consultation, and they're doing clinical. And when they're, if they're not doing the clinical, they're really consultants. They're not salespeople. They're consultants in there. And the public just totally appreciates that ability to go in and talk to them. And sometimes these students are explaining what the diagnosis is first, and then saying, here's what you need to. So that's I think it's a great opportunity. Boy, I go in there, and there are, in one particular store, I mean, there are 10 to 12 people in there working, and there's a lineup of people trying to get into the facility.
Huh.
So it's amazing to me that that's an avenue that we didn't really think about. We have graduates from our programs. I'm sure other people that are working in the medical representatives for joint replacement augmentations like appliances and stuff. One of our graduates was in there for many, many years working with surgeons and in the surgeries and etc. And now he's just been he's transitioned to working in cardiac care. So he's working with cardiologists on the various implants that they can put in. Amazing that we never ever thought that would ever happen, right? And then where we are now in different industries, so in the forestry industry and the firefighting industry and the military, and we have people working with Boeing and the railway industry. I mean, who would have thought that would happen, right? And then the other thing is the whole notion of private practice, and I think I kind of alluded to that at the very beginning. But private practice, we got people who now there's enough reimbursement that they can make it a viable thing. It's still, I think, still hard. That's tough to get into private business to do that. But I think we have quite a number of clinics now. Many of them, like we have former graduates, 3 or 4 of them getting together, opening up a clinic and making a go of it, which is really good to see that that's happening. I'm pleased to see that there are other avenues because you're probably just like me. When I went in and I started to do this thing, my ultimate goal was to work with a professional sport, and I was going to work with, and I had the privilege of working with the Edmonton Eskimos and now the Elks, and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and I actually, interestingly, I was shortlisted. A second in line for the job with the Seattle Seahawks, and I still have the letter. And I go, wow, that would have been amazing. But at the same time, there are pros and cons to every position, right? And that's a tough gig as well. And they're few in demand. They're not, I mean, as much as a tough gig, it's a very good job for the right person, and so they don't come up off a lot, right? So to say that I can go in and work, I can just name my team and go and work with the team. That's hard to do. It doesn't come by that easily. It takes a lot of work and a lot of planning on your part well ahead of time. You got to work your way into it. I think I was just talking to someone. I just did an interview about what it takes to get into some of the big sports like hockey and football and stuff, and particularly hockey. They have and baseball. I think you had talked to Rick Griffin at one point in time about the whole notion of you work with the feeder leagues, so you're working in Canada, for example, with the Western Canada Hockey League, and maybe even lower than that, you're working with some of the junior leagues. And I worked junior hockey when I was going to school and stuff. So working there and then working up, I actually got a job offer to go to Brandon with the Brandon Wheat Kings. But at the time, this is when I was a student. I was just finished graduating, and they wanted to hire me as an athletic therapist. But the principal job requirement was that I had to have a license to be able to drive the bus, and I had to learn how to sharpen skates.
Right.
So that was kind of
one more intimidating than the other, depending on which way you look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that's the stepping stone. You want to get in, you got to make your mark, and you got to move up. And so that's the same as what it is right now with pro sport. So it's a tough one to get into, but at the same time, there are so many other options that we have now too. So it's a great thing.
Yeah. No, and a brilliant sort of opportunity for a segue here. It's in our ad in the podcast right now, but International Athletic Training and Therapy Day 26 is coming up. That's February 12th. And so I'll just throw this out for anybody listening here. If you know somebody, if you've seen an athletic therapist, if your uncle, your sister, your brother, your cousin, whoever is an athletic therapist, make a little plug and hashtag IATTD26. Throw it out there on Instagram or X or LinkedIn or whatever you're using from a social media standpoint. I think we all have a role to play. We all have a role in building this profession moving forward. And this might be a small part of it. So if you're not comfortable getting on camera, you're not comfortable sharing your vision, your practice, have one of your athletes who plays professional sport, have the recreational tennis player whose ankle and tennis is just as important to them as it is to the pro athlete. Speak to the importance of this profession and what you do and what it looks like on a day-to-day basis. Glen Bergeron out in Winnipeg. Always a pleasure. I don't want to take up any more of your time. I could sit here and listen to you all day as well. But fortunately or unfortunately, I also have to run to a rink to stand on a bench and hopefully stay warm in an arena, warmer in an arena than outside currently here as well as there. So I hear, but always a pleasure to hear your insights, the historical references, and as always, your passion and the foundation of what this profession is here in Canada and impacting across the globe as well. So I truly appreciate your time. I hope that I and we are doing our little part here to push this profession forward. And again, for our listeners, IATTD26, that's February 12th. Use a hashtag, tag WFAT, make us all proud of what we do. Little stories go a long way, and they hit home with just about everybody across the globe that has an active component to their life. So Glen, I'll throw it to you to close it out however you wish. Again, truly honored to have your time and to have you speak to our audience and stay connected here.
Well, you did a great job of promoting the ATT Day. So to me, I'll just quickly say there are two reasons why we're doing it. One is to really show people how big this profession is worldwide. You're not alone. You're part of a big picture. So the message is actually going internal to ourselves to let us know that we're a big entity now. And the other is the message to go out of our profession to everybody else. So the more we can do that, my vision when we started this thing was that we were going to blow up the internet. We were going to reach 1 million hits, for example. So the more people, just one hit makes a difference. We just want to make sure on that day that we just blow the horns and just say, we're here, we are important, we're valuable, we have a job to do, we make a difference in people's lives, and to know that we're a collective. So that's really important. Just take a minute out of your day. Let's make this as big as we possibly can.
Yeah, awesome. Again, that's February 12th. It's also in our ad that runs through this podcast. Glen, obviously a founder and an advocate for this profession, for what I do, for what you do, for what everybody out there listening hears about what we're doing. Truly appreciate it. And we will stay in touch and talk to you soon. For those that are listening, thank you for listening. Make sure to share it. Make sure to share it with somebody else. Make sure to let somebody else know what it is that we do and what you do. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, James.
Thanks again for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of this community. Check us out online, firststartherapy.com. That's FIRSTAR therapy.com. Or email us with feedback, consult@firststartherapy.com, CONSULT@firststartherapy.com, on Instagram @firststar.therapy, and our podcast host @letschat.at. This is First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast.